Most of us can get away with not always being perfect. But mistakes are just too risky when it's your job to be run over whilst on fire. When your reputation relies on a few gadgets and ghosts. Or when it's down to you to get 1,000 cattle across a deadly swamp. Chances need not apply for this trade. Precision is the buzzword. Without it, you'll almost certainly injure or kill someone. You need more than just an advanced driving license to cut it here. This is the live stunt show at Disneyland Resort Paris. When you buy a ticket, you check out of reality and into fantasy. But bringing movie stunts to the live arena is down to professional daredevils like Sébastien Rabet.
Mon métier, cascadeur à Disney.
I'm a professional stuntman for Disney. I've been working here for 3 years. I've been training with a head stuntman for 3 months to get to grips with all the dangers and risks and to be totally ready for the show.
In this job, you race into retirement once you're past 25 years old. Burnout here comes fast. The idea is to put visitors in the picture, show them how movie stunts are achieved. Being a professional daredevil is much more than just being a showman.
The stunts we do give the body a real beating, so I work out as much as I can in the morning. The stunts in the show are particularly dangerous for the back, but put demands on the whole body, so all-over fitness is a key thing.
With 2 shows a day throughout the summer, you can't afford to be out of action through injury. Sebastian's been in the hot seat since the age of 4, so he's about as built for this job as you can get. But one loose nut or bent rivet on a bike and Sebastian could kiss goodbye to his dream career. If you're scared of preparation, this isn't the job for you. At least you won't get bored though. One day you're playing the villain, the next the hero. And it could be on a bike, in a car, or if you pull the short straw, as a human torch. Training is everything. Every one of the 15-member team is an expert in something, whether it's trial bike riding, racing driving, or martial arts. And if you also show management potential, you might get to be stunt leader, like Anthony Bonnet.
I came on board as a regular stuntman and then progressed onto what's called a stunt lead. I'm in complete charge of the stunt team at every level here. Yeah, we have a massive responsibility for their safety because we're the ones giving the orders during the show. If you want to do this job, you have to be vigilant and keep a clear head.
The choreographers behind this show have worked for the best. James Bond is on the list. It's much better to misjudge a pirouette, wheel spin or a barrel jump during rehearsal than in front of a crowd of 3,000 paying customers. Don't try this at home though. As well as training, you need the right kind of car.
The car body is the same as that of a regular Corsa, except it's made of plastic. It's got a tubular steel frame. From the outside it looks like a regular car, but in fact it's very, very different.
They're powered by whopping 1,300cc motorcycle engines, with gears that can slam into reverse at no matter what speed.
It's like driving a go-kart, but with a very powerful engine. It's in the back and the car is rear-wheel drive, which is great for spinning and drifting.
tout ce qui est fun, quoi.
Learning to control twice the power and half the weight of a normal car takes weeks. You also get through a lot of tyres. You cannot let your guard down even for a second. Complacency can kill, and you have to train your mind to stay sharp no matter how tired you are.
La routine, c'est le danger de ce métier, en fait, la routine.
The routine is the real danger in this profession, because if you're not conscious of the dangers when you're doing a wheelie or other stunts, you risk a lot of accidents.
En faisant ce qu'on fait,
So we have to remain focused on what we do. We can't afford any lapses of concentration.
rester vigilant, il faut pas prendre mes gardes.
This is the part where you're likely to feel you're earning your salary, although the boys keep the figure very close to their chests.
Donc là-bas, en fait, c'est mon échappatoire, entre
I
parenthèses.
find myself surrounded by the baddies on motorbikes, and I try to get away, but my only escape is to get off the bike and to grab the fishing net on the quay. This I can turn in the air to get away, and then chase them on foot.
On va dire en marchant et en leur courant après.
All those hours in the gym pay off. Time to get ready for the grand finale.
Voilà.
So the Human Torch comes from over here. Once he nears the area covered with petrol, he drops the bike by braking hard and lets it slide up to the firewall.
Préalablement, en fait, il y a une préparation de 45 minutes, qui est une non-préparation.
Before all this, there is a 45-minute preparation using Nomex and a gel to protect the skin. Then the leathers, and finally a flammable gel.
Au par-dessus la dernière couche, qui permet de prendre feu en une heure.
There's so much about every layer of these stunts that could go wrong. The downside of this job? You risk broken bones and third-degree burns every day. The upside? To get to make people happy, doing something you love. There's even time to meet the fans. It's not in the contract, but Sebastian's always keen to try and get a new recruit fired up. But how do you make it into such an elite trade?
C'est vrai que ce travail est
This job is unique in the world. My advice to young people is to do as much sport as you can, avoid drinking and smoking, and maybe one day you could be a stuntman like me.
donc pour devenir
That would be great.
un métier comme moi et cascadeur, ce serait vraiment excellent.
Live clean, play hard, and all this could one day be yours. But this is a job where reputation counts as much as ability. So, if you're looking for an easy ride, forget it. Next, did someone say reputation? How would you feel about staking yours on something flimsy, contentious, and almost impossible to prove? Like ghosts. One man from Hatfield in England is on a mission to make us believe. Not in ghosts, but in science. Professor Richard Wiseman used to be a magician. Now, he's a parapsychologist.
I'm a professor of psychology, and most of my work is looking at the psychology of the paranormal. And that includes looking at allegedly haunted places, places where people go, experience what they think are ghosts, and I'm trying to find out what's going on.
It's his belief that science can provide perfectly rational answers to even the weirdest phenomena. Around 50% of the world believes in ghosts. 13% actually claim sightings. Richard is one of only about 20 people in the world with his credentials. Of all the haunted spots in Europe, few are as truly spooky as the narrow streets beneath the old city of Edinburgh. 350 years ago, This is where hundreds of people died of the plague. This was a young girl's room. The story goes she was left to die alone. Today, visitors leave her gifts. Richard's job is to get scientific proof to explain the strange goings-on in Mary King's Close.
Well, we'll be using all different types of sensors. This is a logging device that it logs humidity and air temperature. This looks at air movement, so it's a very subtle kind of draft detector, if you like. And over here we have a magnetometer, which will give us a very sensitive measurement of the Earth's magnetic field.
You need to be a prominent academic to convince the money men. A first-class honours degree, a doctorate, countless publications in scientific journals. If you're good, you can earn up to €65,000 a year. But no amount of money can save your reputation if your results are bogus, especially when it's a public experiment.
You know, when you do science, most of the time as a psychologist, you're doing it in the lab, and that means you have a lot more control over all the different factors. It also means if the experiment doesn't yield anything interesting, not many people know about it, and so you quietly forget about that one. When you're doing these are big public experiments, lots of media attention. If in a few days' time we've learned absolutely nothing, well, that's kind of a bit embarrassing.
Even a pro like Richard can have last-minute doubts.
Yeah, this is quite a large location. And when I was wandering around here before thinking about the experiment, most of the places here didn't make me feel particularly uneasy. The only place that I didn't like was what's called Mr. Chesney's house.
Andrew Chesney was a sawmaker and the last resident to leave Mary King's Close in 1901. Legend has it that he never really left. A parapsychologist puts faith in his tools of the trade. But there are two major factors he can't control: the environment and the volunteers who will record their experiences. Teammate Vic Tandy is the sound man. His gadget measures infrasound. Even though you can't hear it in the true sense, infrasound may have a subconscious effect on you. For instance, it could make you feel frightened without quite knowing why. Richard and Vic record a sample in the plague room, a former sickbay, and they're in for a surprise. Something trips the infrasound detector. Too low to be audible, but clear as anything on the graph.
That's odd, and it's not something that's happened throughout the rest of the place.
The peak of it was as loud as when we were talking.
Yeah.
I didn't hear anything either.
Which is intriguing.
In your experience?
An elephant's rumble would show up like this. But there aren't any elephants here, as far as we know.
It's actually quite a loud, you know, I mean, if that had been audible.
The volunteers have no idea what to expect. They were chosen at random to take part in this experiment.
First of all, thanks very much for taking part and offering to take part.
Richard briefs them to keep an open mind and to note down any sensations, however weird. If they see apparitions, they need to try and match them to the pictures. One of them is an identikit built up from lots of previous sightings of a male ghost.
You see 4 faces.
Now for the scientist to remove himself from his own experiment.
The area you're in, the other 3 don't.
Waiting is the worst part. Not because it's spooky, but because it's boring.
That's a bit unnerving. It's kind of like the feeling that you get when you're in cemeteries, kind of goosebumps on the back of your neck and stuff like that.
The experiment is over, but back at the University of Hertfordshire, the work has only just begun.
We go back, we put it into a computer and we essentially map it. We look for the hot spots. We look to see where people have been experiencing things and try and find explanations.
A few megabytes of raw data now lie between him and possibly the answer to a centuries-old mystery. A good scientist lets the facts speak for themselves. And if he can't come up with a result, what then for his reputation? But it's good news.
In the haunted sites, around about 80% of people reported something strange, compared to only about 40% of the control sites. So something is going on. Mary King's Close certainly has a reputation for being haunted, and that reputation is well deserved. People go to certain parts of it, they don't know that those parts are supposed to be haunted, but still they have some very odd experiences there.
So, science has backed up the public's claims, but what does it really prove?
We look, for example, at the humidity between the sites, and the ghostly sites are much lower in terms of humidity than the control sites. And when we walk into a place of relatively low humidity, it can make us feel cold, in part because the sweat on our skin evaporates much more rapidly. Oh, I see kilohertz, that's right.
What's strange is that the majority of people who saw a ghost reported seeing the same ghost, a middle-aged man. Can parapsychology account for that?
Some of it is to do with the environment, some of it is to do with the psychology of the situation. We certainly haven't solved all of the mysteries of Mary King's Close. We have a little bit more insight, but still there's a lot of unanswered questions.
Not least why people see apparitions. Although science has a theory about that too. It could be infrasound causing your eyeballs to vibrate. Here's a problem for you. How do you get hundreds of cattle from one side of South America's biggest wetland to the other? You can't use any trucks to transport them, but then there aren't any roads anyway. The floodplains of the Pantanal stretch over 170,000 square kilometres in the far west of Brazil to Bolivia and Paraguay. Juarez is a wetland cowboy. Sound glamorous? It isn't.
The longer you're away, the more you want to be at home. You're thinking of your family, but you've also got to support them. But that's the job, and you just have to put up with it.
These cowboys have been working in the same way for over 200 years. He doesn't own any of these bulls, but he's trusted to look after them. His day starts at 4 in the morning to avoid the punishing heat. Getting money for his family, his own self-respect, everything is staked on his ability to deliver.
The trek with 700 bulls takes about 30 days, and there are plenty of dangers on the way. We're in a bad situation if the herd gets spooked and they all run off in different directions across the wilderness.
30 days. May not sound a lot, but you should try it. Every cattle lost can personally set him back over €200. And even if you manage to keep the cattle out of harm's way, there's always rattlesnakes, pit vipers, anacondas, jaguars, caiman, and millions of piranhas waiting to get you. Oh, and the nearest hospital is hours away. These cowboys are called pantaneros. When you work here, in the Pantanal, you never leave home without your poncho in the wet season. Between October and March, water levels can rise 5 metres, making an already tough job practically impossible.
When it rains, the herd moves slowly because the ground is hard going for them. We have to keep them in a tight group. When the sun's out shining, work's a lot easier. The herd can spread out a bit more and we don't have to hide underneath our ponchos.
A wetland cowboy thinks nothing of a 20-kilometre commute. This may look like a laid-back lifestyle, but it's far from carefree. Kauto, the boss, is never far behind, keeping a constant check on his men's schedule and the condition of the bulls. It's his job to see to the negotiations. Herding 700 bulls into the market stalls needs teamwork. If the herd starts drifting to the left flanker drives them back in, the same for the right flanker. And if one breaks out behind the flankers, the tailman is there to straighten things out.
We separate the bulls here. They're loaded on a truck and taken to another farm. We want to sell their oxen afterwards. I have to estimate the value of my cattle. The buyer has to make his mind up too.
Once the deal is done, Juarez saddles up for his next appointment. Time to find a good place to string up a hammock for the night. If you know your Pantanal bushcraft, you can avoid putting yourself on the menu. And if you're really clever, you can catch yourself a killer. Don't be fooled by piranha playing dead. Its jaws are strong enough to snap off your finger. As night falls, the cowboy finds peace with the land. That's if he isn't being eaten alive by ticks and mosquitoes or being stalked by a jaguar. Another early start brings new problems. The riskiest job in the Pantanal Cowboy Handbook, leading cattle across a river. Yesterday's heavy rains mean the River Negro is much higher than usual. The bulls haven't been eating well and are tired. If they slip, they may not get back up again. It's down to Juarez to read the waters carefully. Today, he's lucky. And with another 20 days to go, he'll need to prepare himself for potential casualties. Not many people can say that their office is a wild area about the size of Washington in the US. But before you get carried away with the thought of escaping the rat race, remember, this is the long-distance lorry driving of the horse world. And when life in the saddle turns into months away from home, you need very clear reasons to stick at it. Three jobs where attention to detail is everything. Whether in the saddle, behind the wheel, or on the scientific front line. Being a perfectionist can save your neck.